progressive, Mr. Chris Hahn.
You're a crowd, man.
So, gentlemen, we have a podium situation set up here, like a real presidential debate. I'm going to go down and act like Sally Jesse Raphael instead of being up here on the podium. I feel like I'm a little old.
Every time I stand at the podium, I feel like I've got to do John F. Kennedy. Ask not what your country can do for you.
Do you have an impression?
Spain, Berliner.
Do you have an impression?
Chris, I knew John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy was a friend of mine, and you, sir. No, I'm joking.
I definitely don't have his hair.
So you two are really good friends already. We already know that. If you didn't know that already, they're very good friends backstage, chumming it up and whatnot. But who disagree quite a bit and have had disagreements on various issues. But one of the more recent ones you've had a disagreement on climate change.
Yeah.
And I am sort of fascinated, but I'm pretty ignorant about the whole argument myself, I'll admit. But I'm fascinated by it because, to me, it seems like it's a little more black and white issue. It should be a little more black and white issue. And I'm curious, Michael, as to why do you think Democrats and Republicans have a problem with addressing this particular issue? Is it something that's happening? Is climate change real? Is it not real? Does the science matter? Does it not matter? Why is there a disagreement?
I think you've just explained why, because there are so many questions involved when we talk about climate change. For the right, at our best, we approach climate change with an air of scientific detachment. For the left, at its worst, it approaches climate change with an air of religious attachment and with political opportunism. So very often, in the past few months, you've seen NBC News put forth a climate confessional. That is so that you can go and confess your sins against the climate like you would do in any Catholic church. You have the sin of pollution, you have the redemption of recycling. You can even purchase indulgences, as in the medieval church, through the form of carbon tax credits. There is a real sense of eschatology, the end of the world. We're facing a mankind extinction, which, of course, there's no scientific evidence for. There is some evidence that the Earth is warming. It's entirely possible that it's warming. But the question is, how much? Will that be harmful? What do we do to stop it? The left has already assumed that it's the worst. The world is going to end in 10 years. And there's really little evidence of that. The other thing that poisons this issue is that the left approaches it with a great degree of political opportunism. So in the Green New Deal, the $93 trillion Green New Deal that so many presidential candidates have endorsed, Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Kamala Harris, so many Democratic senators, AOC wrote it. In the Green New Deal, you have not just environmental measures, but you also have reparations for slavery. You also have job guarantee programs. You also have socialized medicine. Those might all be worthwhile objects of the left, but they have nothing to do with the environment. So just coincidentally, this idea of global warming happens to give the left every public policy goal that they've wanted for 100 years. That makes those of us who are conservative a little skeptical of the claims. We look a little bit more at the science of it. And if you even raise that question, the left calls you a denier and they say you should be silenced in the public square.
Do you think, Chris, that hyperbole is a problem? And if so, on whose side?
Well, as pundits, we like to use hyperbole a lot. Mike just used some. I'm probably going to use some. But let's assume everything the right says about climate change is correct for a second. I'm a capitalist. I like to see things move forward. I'm also progressive. I want to see an America where we are reaching into the future, not reaching back to the past. We are right now using fuels and other energy sources that are 200 years old. And there's a whole bunch of new technology that would be cheaper and cleaner and create new jobs and new industries in America that could bring us forward into the next century. And there's only one party on this entire globe that disagrees that we have a problem with climate change, and that's the Republican Party of the United States of America. The most conservative parties in other countries in the world, more conservative on other issues than the GOP is here in this country, agree that we have a climate change issue that should be addressed. Now, look, we don't know for sure everything about it. We don't know exactly what's causing it, but 99% of scientists agree that man is contributing to it. And if there's anything we can do to fix that, Why not fix it? And if we could create a new industry, if we could create new jobs, if we could create better technology, if we could save money, if we could make the air cleaner, we can make the water cleaner, why on earth would we not do that? That's my question. I mean, you could agree with everything he just said, but why wouldn't we try to move forward? Why wouldn't we try to create a new industry, to create new jobs? There are a lot of jobs right here in Tennessee that go away. These are new jobs that can be created right here in Tennessee. They can be created in the Midwest, the upper Midwest, all over this country and all over this planet. We just got to be willing to try.
Unfortunately, the problem is that we all agree that we should create new jobs, we should use whatever energy is going to be efficient and help people heat their homes. The trouble with the Green New Deal is that it would not do that. It would be very counterproductive. Independent analyses of the $93 trillion Green New Deal have shown that even if you could somehow pay for it, and nobody has explained how you could pay for even a tenth of it, even if you could pay for it, it would destroy 5.8 million jobs on day one. It would outlaw immediately 90% of American energy. That's in addition to everything else that it does. I just want to point out, you mentioned that 99% of scientists agree that man-made global warming is a very, very serious problem. The number that is usually cited, speaking of hyperbole, is 97%. And this was the line in the Al Gore movie. This is the line that people cite. That number is completely bogus. It is made up. Lock it away with the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus. It is not true. That number is based on 4 studies. NASA cites 4 studies to back it up. One is by the historian Naomi Oreskes that has serious methodological problems because it only cites abstracts of papers. When you actually look into what she cites, she gets to 75% consensus. There was then a rebuttal of that. There was a refutation of it that showed that not only is it not 75%, 2008 they showed it was actually 7% of those scientists explicitly endorsed the IPCC. The second one came out, it found 97% from the scientist John Cook. This was immediately debunked in the Science and Education. Actually only found that 1% of scientists surveyed explicitly supported the IPCC conclusion of catastrophic climate change. The third study was a 2-minute survey that was sent out to 10,000 people. 3,000 responded. They took out the scientists who would have been in fields that possibly could have attributed warming to the sun. And
Since you're trying to, instead of going through all the specific lists,
There's one last study, though. There's one last study, Clay.
none of us have a library with us to go and look and check these studies. So let me ask you, instead of rebutting that,
I knew I should have asked Ruben Studdard to moderate this debate.
Don't worry, I'm sure he rehearsed that line in the bathroom this morning. So since you're rebutting things that he was mentioning,
yeah.
Why don't we have you rebut the questions that he asked, which were specifically, why not do something about it? Because
I don't want to destroy 5.8 million jobs and get rid of 90% of American
but
energy.
here's the question. The question is not. He didn't ask why don't we do the Green New Deal, and it seems like you want to.
What would you want to
go
do?
again? I don't know. I'm asking you. I'm moderating.
Chris, what would you like us to do about global warming?
I'm asking the questions. So hold on a second. Hold on a second.
Go ahead.
I'm asking the questions.
All right.
Feel free to try to control it, but you won't get to. He asked you why not do something about it. You agreed when we came out here that the climate is warming and that there is studies and proof that scientific evidence that shows
there are some
the
studies
climate
that show
is warming.
Some do not.
Okay,
yeah.
so my question was, why don't Republicans and Democrats agree? You did agree on that. He talked about why don't we do something about it if we can do something about it, and you said because I don't want to do all these things. But you're only rebutting the Green New Deal, and you're the only person who brought that up. I didn't ask about that.
Well, every presidential candidate on the left at AOC did.
I'm not one of them. I'm asking you what can be done about climate change.
Right.
Forget the Green New Deal for a second. What do Republicans believe can be done and should be done?
I'll give you a great example, because you're asking me why don't we do something. That's extraordinarily vague. I support doing something and not doing nothing. There, we all agree. The question is, what should we do? The question
I'm
is,
asking you, what should we do?
And specifically,
unless you want to cede the ground to Democrats to be the ones who come up with ideas.
I'll give you an example.
Which it seems like you're doing. Then give me one.
We were told that if President Trump pulled us out of the Paris Climate Accord, the sky would fall and the earth would be doomed. President Trump pulled us out of the Paris Climate Accord, everything was fine. We were then told by those same people who sold it, well, it was actually better than fine. We were then told by the same people who sold it that the Paris Climate Accord would only get us 1/3 of the way towards stopping catastrophic man-made global warming, meaning the Paris Climate Accord wouldn't have done anything in the first place. But there is actually good news, because we pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord, and guess what turned out in a 2018 study? That the United States leads the world in reducing carbon emissions. And you know what else is funny? You know what else is funny from that study? All those signatories to the Paris Climate Accord, Spain, Canada, the European Union, certainly China, not only did they not abide by the regulations of the Paris Climate Accord, they actually increased their climate emissions. So the US, we don't join the Kyoto Protocol. We pull out of the Paris Climate Accord. We don't pass a carbon tax. We don't pass gas taxes. We don't pass cap and trade. We are still leading the world. Not only are we doing something about protecting the environment, we're doing more than anybody else.
So, just for those of you who see me on Fox and wondering why I'm not interrupting him, we do have an hour, and we're going to be here. But look, here's the thing. The United States is leading the way because states are leading the way, and also corporations are leading the way, reducing their carbon footprint, because it makes sense to do that. The market is driving us towards reducing our carbon footprint. The only person on this planet that's driving us away from it is Donald Trump. Donald Trump wants to increase our climate footprint. He wants to increase our carbon footprint here in the United States of America. He is passing laws to make it easier to pollute in America, and he's redacting laws that have been put in place that were meant to save our environment. Like I said, and let me just go one other thing, the Green New Deal. The Green New Deal is a bogeyman. It is what the right wants you to be afraid of most. Do not be afraid of the Green New Deal. The Green New Deal is not anywhere close to being passed. Now, there might be parts of it that might be passed, but I kind of long for a day in America where somebody says, we've got a problem. Here's my solution to that problem. What's your solution to that problem? Might be different than my solution to the problem. Might be further to the right, mine might be further left. We'll get together and we'll talk about it. Instead, what we have in America today is, here's my idea, you're a communist, you're a fascist, you're a racist. No, I want our ideas to have real debates, real conversations from the left and the right and the center and all other sides in between, where we can kind of work out solutions to real problems. Climate change is a real problem. We are continuing to reduce our carbon footprint because corporations and states want to do it. And as for what other countries are doing, climate change and acting on climate change is a public good. It is a public good that benefits the United States of America most, because we are the richest nation on earth and we have the most to lose. If we were building a street and we owned a factory, other people might use that street. But we would use that street too, and we would benefit most for it. Even if we paid for it, other people in the public would pay for it, would get some benefit out of it too. But we would benefit more for it. The United States of America is the richest, most powerful nation on earth, and we should be leading in everything that's important to this planet.
Do you feel like somebody's got fans
Yeah,
here?
I got like five people.
Some people.
You know, when you're a liberal on Fox, I know you all know me. And I love you. Trust me, I do. And I appreciate you watching Fox News, and I appreciate you watching me, Fox News, but I know you're not going to agree with me, but that's okay. Just download my podcast, The Aggressive Progressive Chris Hahn. You know where it's at.
So do you think that this rhetoric makes it hard to get to the truth? I mean, this is the climate change. Some people will say, part of the big argument is that people are saying constantly, this is a scientific thing. This is not an opinion. This is not an opinion-based situation. But there's still rhetoric that makes it difficult for us to get to the truth. Is rhetoric a problem with why we can't get to the truth of this issue or any other issues?
Yeah, I mean, rhetoric is the absolute problem here. Look, he cited a bunch of articles from right-wing publications that are coming out and saying that scientists aren't basically in unison on this issue. No, there is a problem. The world is changing. We have more carbon dioxide in our atmosphere now than we did at any other point in the last 3.5 million years. And there was a mass extinction the last time we had this kind of problems. Now, hey, maybe we're better suited for it now. Maybe everybody who died in that last extinction is already dead and we don't have to worry about them anymore. We survived it, right? But it's still a problem. And trying to find the solutions to that problem are going to create jobs. Now, you want to put out a bogeyman, the Green New Deal, because there's some first-term congresswoman that's gotten a lot of ink and is on fire. What is she supposed to be? Is she supposed to be jaded already? She just got to Congress. Let her have a big idea or two. That's fine. Congress works slowly. The founders gave us an incremental system of government. We should have ideas on both the left and the right. We should find solutions to things that are really happening. We should find a way to make the lives of everyday Americans better. And we could do that through finding new technologies and supporting new research. Right now, this government is all about fossil fuel. And I'm not saying we should eliminate fossil fuel tomorrow. I'm not saying that at all. But I do think we should be looking for the next thing, because this technology we're using right now is the same technology we were using 150, 200 years ago, and it's time to move on.
The reason I mention the Green New Deal is not just to mention AOC, who is very entertaining, so I talk about her a lot. But it isn't just her. It's not just a boogeyman.
I know, I listen to your podcast. You do talk about her a lot.
The Green New Deal is endorsed also by Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren. This is all in the Senate. This is among presidential candidates. This is a major policy initiative of the Democratic Party, not the fringe voices, not the new voices, but the established mainstream people. So you've got that on one hand. The other aspect of it is it won't be a public good to destroy jobs. It won't be a public good to harm industries. There is also great cause for skepticism. Why? Because there have been a lot of predictions about global warming that have not come true. Since 2013, the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, has admitted that it's gotten many things wrong. It's admitted that we couldn't account for the lack of warming between 1997 and 2012. It's admitted that it was wrong about its predictions in declining Antarctic ice. It admitted that it was wrong about melting Himalayan glaciers. It admitted that it was wrong about not being able to account for the medieval warming period from 950 to 1250, well before the Industrial Revolution. The other reason I urge caution here is because we have heard from the same climatologists warnings in exactly the other direction. This is my absolute favorite one. My favorite one comes from 1970, the Washington Post. They say scientists see ice age in the future. Get a good grip on your long johns, cold weather haters. That's the long-range weather forecast being given out by climatologists. In 1972, a group of climatologists at Brown said that the natural end of our warm epoch is undoubtedly near. So I'm not saying that certainly there's no warming. I'm not saying we can't do anything about protecting our environment. What I'm saying is there is great cause for skepticism here. We've heard consensus. We've heard undoubtedly a lot before. And so we should approach this with humility. We shouldn't assail people who disagree with these predictions as haters and as deniers.
You realize you're quoting things from 1972.
Right. I'm quoting climatologists from then.
You realize that nobody cares anymore about 19. I was 1 in 1970. Your mom was probably 10 in 1972. Why are we talking about 1970?
Because it shows that scientific consensus change over time.
Do scientists, are they always right? No, but there's not much that scientists agree as much as they do on this issue.
Well, in 1970, they agreed that we were approaching a cold era.
Even if they're wrong, we know that fossil fuels pollute. We know this. This is something we all agree on. We know that solar doesn't pollute. We know that wind doesn't pollute. It doesn't cause cancer like President Trump said.
They also don't produce very much energy is the trouble.
Well, that's why we got to invest in technologies and try to understand a way to make those things more efficient and effective. And if we do that, we're going to create a whole new industry. We're going to be less dependent on the Middle East. We won't have to have our troops guarding oil fields in Turkey and southern Syria right now. We don't need that right now.
Well, we're pulling the troops out, so I guess
we're they're protecting the oil.
The subject for
the
a
president
second.
left them there to protect the oil. Not the people, the oil.
Let me change the subject for a second. So climate change is not a big, huge, it's not something that scares you, right? This moment.
I don't lose sleep over it.
What are you losing sleep over in this country? What do you think the biggest threat is?
The biggest threat in the country is a collapsing of our institutions.
Like, what does that mean?
Such as
what do you mean? What do you mean? Yeah, give me an example.
A lack of faith in our institutions of our republic. So, for instance, the idea that we can't trust the Supreme Court, that we can't trust Congress or the Senate, that we can't trust to have our elections be upheld, that we actually, over time, will overturn our presidential elections if the Congress doesn't like it. That's a major issue. The erosion of our faith in our institutions comes down from an erosion of our political discourse. Because of this scourge of censorship and political correctness, people no longer feel that they can debate things in good faith. I mean, Chris and I are debating back and forth very much in good faith. That's a rare occurrence now. What we are told increasingly is, if you don't agree with me on 100% of things, you're a hater. If you hold opinions that were perfectly fine 3 years ago, that we have, as the left, decided are no longer fine, you will lose your job, you will lose your reputation, you will lose your livelihood. That erodes trust in our public debate. Self-government requires that kind of debate, and we're losing it fast.
Is cancel culture a problem? Have we gone too far with cancel culture?
Yeah, I think we have. I think that some people get canceled too quickly for nothing. I'm with Bill Maher on that, okay? Look, do I think people should be allowed to walk around and offend people for no reason or any reason for that matter? No. But I do think that sometimes we have canceled people and pushed people aside for far too little. And I think that we have to understand in America, look, you could call yourself and ask to be called whatever you want to be called. I'm all for that. I'm all for it. Just give some people a chance to figure out what that is before you go nuts on them, and then move on. If you have to tell them 3 times, it's a problem. But first and second time, cut them some slack.
Then do you think it's fair, I'm staying with you, Chris,
Yeah.
do you think it's fair that the president has been labeled a racist, that he's been labeled a fascist, that he's been labeled an authoritarian? Do you think that's hyperbole, or do you think it's a fair assessment?
I think that the president, I don't know that I would go ahead and call him a racist, but I do think he has pandered to racists, and that bothers me. I think Charlottesville is the perfect example of that. Charlottesville was a clear-cut case of racism. It was a racist group that resulted in the death of a protester. You might not like the way she protested, you might not like the groups, but it was a racist group out there chanting racist things, and the president had one thing to do that day, and that was to condemn it, and he didn't.
He did.
And that's just one example of him pandering to that kind of culture. And I think the president needs to be above that. Presidents need to have grace. They need to rise above this kind of thing. They need to rise above it. Some of you might like the fact that this president is scrappy and he gets down in the mud, but it's not sustainable as a society. It's leading to this society being increasingly at each other's throats. And he's got to push back from him. He's got to lead. He's got to be the one to bring people together, not push people apart, and that bothers me.
Do you think you said he did condemn it. Do you think that his statements in Charlottesville, I mean, that was over a year ago, but do you think that his statements in Charlottesville were enough? Do you think that what Chris is saying about his responsibility to lead was displayed that day?
I think, it is simply a matter of fact that he did explicitly condemn white supremacists and racists at Charlottesville, and he did it repeatedly, and he's done it repeatedly on the campaign trail. You might still object to his rhetoric, but he has repeatedly, for years and years, condemned racists. He even one time said, how many times do I have to condemn David Duke? I hate David Duke. I don't like David Duke. So he's done that repeatedly. And yet, most people don't know that because of a mainstream media narrative that President Trump is a racist. Because, in that case, they explicitly lied about what he said. These words have meaning. One of my favorite examples of this is the CNN contributor Ariva King was on the radio show with our friend David Webb. And she was talking to David Webb, and she accused him of exploiting racism and exploiting his white privilege, which was a big shock to David Webb because David Webb is a black man, and she had just never seen him before. She didn't call him a white privileged guy because she thought it was true. She did it because it was politically convenient, and if he had been a white guy, she could have gotten a lot of play with it. That's very dangerous. Words have meaning. There is no evidence that President Trump is a racist or an anti-Semite.
Words do have meaning. The president's words have more meaning than anybody else's words, and he needs to choose them carefully. Last night, he tweets out, "Something big just happened." Now, yeah, something big did happen. The president's words move markets. They scare people. When the president tweets, it scares people. It moves markets. His words matter more than mine, more than yours, more than anybody else's on the planet, and he does not choose them carefully. And that is leading to problems in this country. It has led to problems in the markets as well from time to time from what he said. And he needs to be more careful with that. I think you would agree with that. I think you need to agree with that.
He tells
Last
me,
time I told you to agree with something, you should have just agreed with me.
Well, I'm not so sure about that. He told me that he uses the very best words, and I think he probably does. And I think, frankly, when the left tells you to say something, you can show them the underside of your chin. You know, I think so much of the trouble in this country is the left tells us you have to say this, you have to believe that, you have to say Trump is a racist and an anti-Semite. Trump has a town named after him in Israel. If he's an anti-Semite, he's the worst anti-Semite in the history of the world. He's very ineffective at it. If Trump,
I'm not calling him a racist and anti-Semite. I'm saying his words matter, and he needs to choose them better. He makes statements that move markets, offend people, get people to act in a certain way, and he needs
Chris,
to be better at it.
But Chris, look, we could all use better words. What I'm saying is, if at Charlottesville, if he explicitly condemned racists and white supremacists, we would agree that's a good thing. The president should do that.
His first reaction should have been that. His first reaction was good people on both sides.
In the very same paragraph,
good people on both sides is not condemning racism. There were no good people marching saying Jews will not replace us. Not one good person. Not one of those people was a good person. Not one of them. Not one.
Now, if you read down 2 paragraphs, as he is saying that,
he still said there were good people on both sides.
Well, what he's saying is,
and you know it, and I know it. That's what he said.
Well, I mean,
good people on both sides.
Let me ask it this way. Let me ask it this way. Let me ask it this way.
Sure.
Are people who are marching and shouting "Jews will not replace us"? Are they good people?
I don't
yes
know.
or no?
I mean,
just a yes or no question. Yes or no? No, it's a yes or no
Clay,
question.
What a ridiculous
are people,
question.
Are
Give me
people?
a break.
You can boo me
This
off.
is, you know, the reason
No, because are you able to answer the question?
On one conservative
yes
because
or
they know
no?
that it's a fair fight.
Yes or no? Are people who are marching shouting "Jews will not replace us"?
Nazis are
are
bad,
they
Clay.
good
We
people?
agree. Nazis are bad. Okay.
Can you say yes or no to this? Are you capable of that?
I can. Hey, Clay.
Can you say yes or no to
Let
it?
me ask you a question, Clay.
I don't need to answer a question because I'm not on the stage.
Clay,
Can you answer the question? Yes or no?
You just asked me if Nazis are bad, and I told
no,
you
I
Nazis
did not
are
ask
bad.
you if Nazis were bad.
Of course you did.
I asked you to say yes or no.
Yes or no.
And I
Are
understand
people who
those
don't
are
like
big
Jews
words.
really bad? Yeah, I think they're really bad, Clay.
Are people marching saying Jews will not replace us good people? Yes or no?
They're bad people, Clay. People who are Nazis are bad people, Clay.
That's not what I asked you.
I've answered this 5 times.
No, you haven't. You've chosen to answer it the way you want to answer it.
We'll go back in the tape later and
You're
see if I answer it.
rewording.
I think we'll be able to find that I did it.
You're rewording.
This is exactly Clay. What you're doing right now is exactly what the mainstream media did to Trump at Charlottesville. It's the exact same thing. I gave a perfectly clear answer, and then you tried to pretend that I didn't.
I feel so bad for you. I feel so badly for you.
Why do you
it's
feel
very
badly
easy
for
to play a victim. Let me ask you this.
Why do you feel
Let me
badly
ask
for
you
me?
this.
Hey, guys.
You can boo all you want to. I don't give
everybody.
a fucking shit. Okay, listen.
I think our rhetoric is too extreme.
Let me ask you
Clay.
this. Let me ask you this. Just here's a yes or no question for you. Does President Trump lie?
Oh, I think every human being lies.
I asked a yes or no question.
I know
Does
you're-
President Trump lie? Yes or no?
He lies as much as everyone else lies. Yes,
It
he
is
does.
amazing. Can I ask you a yes or no
But
question?
actually,
Does President Trump lie?
President Trump lies.
Okay.
All the time. 7 to 10 times a day, he lies. He lies about little things. And if somebody lies about little things, you can't believe them about the big things. And that's the problem with him.
So I'll give you an answer on this.
A rowdy crowd.
Because I'll give you an
I
answer.
like
on
it.
this. You're asking if President Trump lies. Of course he lies, everybody lies. The question is, what is the nature of those lies? Does he lie and say he's got the biggest crowd sizes ever? Yes. Is that quite a lie, or is that an exaggeration?
China called. We're really close to a deal. China never called.
Yeah.
China doesn't call. China's a country. They didn't call.
President
They never
Trump's done a lot
called.
better on
He
China
lied.
than Barack
The
Obama
market
did.
responded to that lie, and some of the president's friends probably made some money off of that call.
So I'll explain this.
Lie.
So if we're talking about honesty and lies, let's just show President Trump's record compared to his predecessors. President Trump, I think one of the best left-wing arguments against Trump is that he's actually a little bit too honest and says things that he shouldn't say because he should hide it. When the Heritage Foundation did a study right after he was elected, within the first year, showed that he was affecting more of his agenda more quickly than any of his predecessors on the conservative side. I'll give you another example. The embassy in Jerusalem. Since 1995, the official policy of the United States has been to move our embassy in Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Clinton didn't do it even though he said he would. Bush didn't do it even though he said he would. Obama didn't do it even though he said he would. So when Trump said that he would, Nobody believed him. I didn't believe him. I never thought it would happen. Then Trump, because he's new to politics, just goes out there and he says, I think I'm going to fulfill my campaign promise. He moves the embassy. People are shocked and horrified. They say this is an international incident. It's only because he told the truth. And frankly, if I've got to choose between a guy who's got a little dodgy personal life and who tells lies about crowd sizes, and if we're talking about lies on matters of important public policy, I want the guy to be honest on public policy. I don't care what he says in his personal life.
Before you start, since clearly the audience thinks I'm biased, we're going to let them ask some questions too.
Clay,
we're going to let them ask some questions
for
too.
office as a Democrat. I think you have your biases.
I just want to point something out as a progressive who goes on Fox News. I'm used to biased hosts. I know you're not. I am. It's kind of nice to have one
that's because CNN doesn't
kind of on
invite
my
any
side
conservatives
right now.
on.
And by the way, you could boo me. I'm used to it when I'm in conservative crowds. I love you anyway. But Clay Aiken, man, he's like a national
trust
treasure.
me, I get booed all the time.
Here,
I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about it.
Don't boo him. Don't boo him.
You know what? I'll say this. You know what
Clay
I'll say?
Aiken.
Stop it, Chris. I'm a big boy. I can handle myself. I'll say this. I did a great panel yesterday with Anna Kasparian and Tommy Lahren. A lot of fans of Tommy Lahren and Anna Kasparian, both sides. I will say, I may be a hack, but I've got the fucking microphone. So anyway, we're gonna let you guys ask some questions too. You're ready? I didn't invite people up, but since you're already up, come on up.
Wow.
Do you have a question?
We're gonna be here all night.
This line is already ready, so go for it. Huh? You're a funny guy. Okay. Well, you want to tell your joke again?
I said, is it because I'm black?
Yes,
'Cause
it
you
is.
said I
Okay,
didn't
come on up. Come on up.
Okay, my question is for you. Do you believe, after observing this debate, that he was non-biased?
Look. We know Clay Aiken. It's fine. Everybody's biased.
Okay, if you have a question about something other than me, then you can come to one of my panels later on if you really care to. That's fine. But somebody else, go on.
Okay, now that we're in the business of picking apart things that people say, and especially things that Michael Knowles says, I'm going to do just that.
Lay it on me.
Michael, I want to ask you about something that you said a while ago in a lecture, that the main purpose of the criminal justice system is not rehabilitation or even deterrence, but it's retribution. And you differentiated retribution from revenge. How are they different, and why is retribution so important? What does that get us? I don't think it gets us anywhere. Thank you.
This is an excellent question, and it's a big, very widely misunderstood on both the left and the right. The purpose of our criminal justice system is justice. We also want to deter crime. We also want to rehabilitate offenders. But the primary purpose is justice. Without justice, there would be no reason to have it. Look, all of us could use a little rehabilitation. The reason that we don't go to jail, what separates us from criminal offenders, is the act itself. And the justice is key here. Now, the difference between vengeance, revenge, say, and justice by the civil authority is that if you insult my family or something, I'll want to get revenge on you and I'll be personally really angry, which is terrible. Nobody wants to go out there. Vengeance is the Lord's. Justice, however, has been entrusted to civil authorities. That justice is primarily why we come together and constitute governments. That is to maintain order and justice, and so the civil authority has the right to do that. No society could possibly exist without a sense of justice, down to the lowest level petty crimes all the way up to murder and other serious crimes. That is our traditional understanding of it in societies that have flourished.
That's why the politicization of the Justice Department is the worst thing that's happening in our country right now, by far, under this president.
You're talking about Loretta Lynch under Obama, or are you talking about which Justice Department are we talking about?
Hey, look, I know it's easy for you to get a rise out of your people, but it's Bill Barr, and Bill Barr is not being a traditional attorney general.
What has he done that you object to?
Billy Barr came out and he told his Justice Department to go prosecute the president's political opponents. That's what's going on right now.
When did he do that?
This week. I mean, you watch the news, right?
He's having the
opening
Justice Department investigate interference in the 2016 election. Right.
Into an investigation that was opened by the Trump
committed in 2016.
An investigation that was opened by the Trump Justice Department. And this has got to stop. Okay,
so the Justice Department
cannot have an attorney general going
investigate
around
crimes?
the world seeking evidence to help the president get reelected.
Okay,
that
Chris,
is not the attorney general's job.
Chris, we're going to stick with the question. That wasn't the question that the gentleman asked, so let's move on.
So before I ask my question, I just want to say, Clay, you're probably the worst moderator I've ever seen in my life. Asking very dishonest yes or no questions, but anyway.
That's perfectly fine. I've yet to win anything, so I always come in second place. Ruben will be doing one down the hall, so go ahead and ask
I mean,
your
did you
question.
ever stop beating your children? Yes or no? That's a stupid question. Anyways, I just wanted to say, so this event was, your guys' talk was marketed as, finishing unfinished business, and it was over this argument you guys had over Greta Thunberg about, you said that she was like autistic or whatever. He got really mad at you, and that was the whole thing. And we never even addressed that in the talk. So I was wondering, like, if you guys could maybe quickly address that or something.
Sure, I would be happy to. And so obviously, of course, there is nothing shameful about living with any sort of mental condition. I certainly never suggested that it was, and I certainly never meant to suggest that it was. What is shameful is exploiting children, particularly vulnerable children, for political purposes. And we're seeing this happen in the case of climate change, which is very, very awful, but we've seen it happen before. We've seen it happen to traumatized children in the case of pushing gun control. The left perpetually uses children as human shields for precisely this purpose, to shut down debate. And it's a cheap political trick that they do, and so I object to it on that front, but it's also extraordinarily harmful to children. You're seeing this happen again and again, and so I object to it outright.
But that's not what you did. That's not what happened. What happened was you called her a mentally ill Swedish child. This is a woman who was speaking before the United Nations. She's 16 years old. She's a child. She's autistic. Whatever. Instead of going after her arguments and having a debate about what she said, he decided to say, don't listen to her. She's a mentally ill.
I never said anything of the kind,
This
Chris.
is what you were inferring in that. And this
No,
is
no,
what
that's what you inferred. It's not what I implied,
Hold
my
on,
friend.
skinny boy. Relax. I got this.
Only because
I had
that's
to
a
pull it
compliment.
out. I had
let
to
that stand.
I had to pull it out. Come on. It's like my tagline now. Look. What the right has been doing, and sometimes the left does it too, is when they don't have an answer to the attack, they attack the person raising the question. She is saying we have a problem with climate change. She is leading a large movement of kids around the world that want to see our governments do something about climate change. You might disagree with her message, then disagree with her message. But pointing out her perceived disability that you say, that was not right.
Chris,
and when you're
Chris.
16 years old and you're talking to a guy who's got a 13-year-old kid and a 26-year-old kid, and I'm looking at you saying, come on, man, you're an adult.
Right,
She's
you,
a child.
Chris, that's right.
Do not
Right.
pick on a child.
That's right, Chris. You have teenage kids, which is why you should know much better than to exploit children for political purposes.
I'm not.
I have 20 pages of notes here that can refute every one of your
I got
climate
it.
change
So
arguments.
I don't
But
believe she's being exploited for political purposes. I think that's
You're
false
misdirecting this
argument.
again. You're
That's a false
misdirecting
argument.
again, but I'm going to keep talking until I get to finish.
Yeah.
Because the reason that you're deflecting is because you don't want to answer the question of when it is okay to exploit children in politics. The line that I used is exactly the same language used by Psychology Today. It's exactly the same language used by the girl's mother. It's exactly the same language used by the American Psychiatric
You were not on
Association.
Fox.
And it's
You were
totally
not on
relevant
Fox to
because
talk
you are
about.
not only
You were not on
we
Fox
were-
to
we were
talk
on
about
Fox to talk about the climate
condition.
change
You were on
movement.
Fox to talk about
We were,
climate
excuse me,
change.
I will finish my statement, Chris. I was on Fox to talk about the climate change
climate change,
movement.
yeah.
No, not climate change. The climate change movement.
Right.
And
We were
what
actually
I
there to
said,
talk about
and what
Meatless
I
Monday,
said, and
and
Meatless
you
Monday
brought
should
up
have come up.
something else
What
up.
I said is that it is wrong of the left to try to advance their climate change arguments by exploiting a child. And then I cited a relevant fact as to why it's especially bad to exploit vulnerable children. And that's not the only time they've done it. They did it in Parkland too, to traumatize kids. So my question to you, Chris, is when is it not okay to exploit children for politics?
I think it was the guns that got the kids kind of upset in Parkland. I don't think it was the people. I think the guns that were used to kill their friends.
Right, and then the left
got them
used
upset.
the
And I think they
children to
led a
push
movement to react
their
to things that
agenda.
adults are not doing. Okay, now, look, here's the thing. Here's what you actually said. You said if this was a real movement, it would be led by scientists, not a mentally ill Swedish child.
No, I said if it were about science,
there
it would
have
be
been
led by
scientific
scientists.
marches for 10 years on climate change.
Scientists
there have been
don't march,
scientists
Chris.
calling
Political
it out.
activists march.
There was
Scientists conduct
there was a
studies.
We
science
probably
march
could use a psychologist here today, but we don't. None of us are. So let's let him have the final word.
Thank
It was
you,
his
Clay.
question.
Scientists don't march. You've just revealed exactly the point that I'm making. This has become highly politicized. It is always wrong to exploit children in politics.
Okay,
and
let's
I don't
leave it at
care
that.
how many.
Let's leave it at
excuse
that.
me. I'll finish my statement.
Let's
excuse
leave
me.
it. You made
We're
a
not gonna
statement.
leave
You
it
said
there.
it a few times. You made it a few times.
Excuse
If
me.
you had a question, go ahead.
Excuse me.
Go ahead
If
and
you
ask your
wouldn't
question.
mind. If you wouldn't
said
mind.
it's always,
Thank you very much.
It's always wrong to exploit children in politics. That's the point you made. You've said it a few times.
I want to point out something. I want to point out something about this debate.
You've got folks who are fans of yours in line
both
who want to ask questions.
Would you mind if I finish my point? Thank you
yours.
very much. I would like to point out something. Whenever you question the left's tactic of using children as human shields, which I'm doing right now, you both interject as quickly as you can to shut it down, which is an absolute validation of my opposition to that
You've
awful
said it
tactic.
4 times. I let you say it. I let you have the last word.
Well, he let me
you
say
were
it,
allow-
actually.
No, you said it, and then I said you've said it. So now let's move on. And you wanted to say it 2 more times.
Well,
so
I'm happy to
congratulations,
move
you've
on
said
now
it
that
3
people
more
have heard it.
times. Let's let him ask his question.
My pleasure.
Okay.
All right, this is for Chris. You stated presidents should be above words and have better responses. I know you're far from presidential, but would you take your own advice and be above Michael's comment today
I don't even know what that means.
Which comment does he need to be above?
about the that climate change should not be led by a mentally ill Swedish child who's being exploited?
I stand by what I stand by my reaction. It was an honest, real-time reaction. Mike's got notes. I don't begrudge people who have notes. I've been going on TV a long time. I've never had notes. I read, I come, and I react at my top of my intelligence, okay? This is not, look, when he said that, I had a visceral reaction to that. I actually regret calling him skinny boy. I do.
Hold on,
and
why
I've
do
said
you
that.
regret it?
If you listen to my podcast, you'll say, now I'm going to tell you why I called him. Mike knows the story. We met yesterday for the first time. I'll tell you the story. Is that okay if I tell the story? So we were supposed to talk about Meatless Monday. And whenever I get a topic like Meatless Monday, which I consider the conservative outrage of the day, I try to make fun of it. I try to make it look ridiculous. I come up with a little shtick. And one of my shtick was I've traveled around this country and maybe we could use a day off from meat. I haven't taken a single day off from meat here in Nashville, though, and I don't recommend anybody do that. But I didn't know Mike. And I didn't want to be saying that, doing fat jokes with a heavy guy, so I looked into the monitor and I see this thin, young guy, and I had in my head, oh, he's a skinny boy.
And I will say, in your defense, Chris, I took it as a compliment. I thank you very much.
Thin. You're very thin. Thinner than me. I'm jealous a little bit. So that's how it came about. I don't like name calling in politics. I don't like it at all. I want to see us come together and try to solve problems. But when people start doing name calling, it makes the whole thing just seem completely irrelevant, and people turn off to it, and we've got to stop that. And to the extent that I'm part of it, I'm trying to do better, and I think we could all do better. Look, Patton Oswalt, he's a comedian. He's got a saying. I like to repeat it all the time. It's chaos. Be kind. We all have more in common with each other than not. We might disagree on political things that we all think are so important right now. I want to get back to a point where we don't think about the president for a couple days and we could just go enjoy Nashville and have some barbecue and hot chicken.
Okay, we'll leave it at that and go with, we got 5 minutes. We can get both of these who are already standing up, I think. Go ahead.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Lisa Simpson, U.S. 2020 presidential candidate, and I'm running with the Purple Party, which is to transcendence of the divisive nature of politics. Chris, I was curious, don't you find it more offensive that Greta was proposing that she's not interested in anyone's hope? She would like us to believe in the delusion that our houses are literally on fire. Don't you find that's more offensive to be spreading a message of having zero hope and encouraging people to be in a panic than what one other person said? Don't you think it's a disservice that we're putting all this focus on something that's offensive, then the solutions for climate change are talking about that? And I just want to state that this is the reason why people don't pay more attention to politics, because I have no hate for a single person on any side, and I have respect for however people feel, and I have respect for anyone that's voting for Trump. I'm just curious, do you have respect for people that vote for Trump and the fact that they like him and believe in him and they're excited to vote for him?
Look, 2 things.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I respect people who voted for Trump. I love y'all. And I still believe in a place called Hope, to quote Bill Clinton. I named my daughter Hope. Hope is my favorite word. It is. And I have hope that whatever we're going through in this country right now gets worked out. and we're all singing Kumbaya, even Mike and I.
I agree. I can't believe I have to say I agree with Chris Hahn, but I do.
There you go. We should drop the mic there. Last question.
All right, Mr. Knowles, this is my question for you. I would like to ask why Republicans and conservatives don't talk about the energy, and that why there are wind and solar, and now there's also gas. But however, the collection of those energies. However, you can build a car engine and destroy it easily. However, a car battery, takes way more energy to make than an engine, and also it's non-biodegradable, and also wind turbine blades are also non-biodegradable. They take 100 years for them to biodegrade, so they just bury them into the ground.
It's a great point you raise, and unfortunately we didn't have time to get into too much in the way of energy and some solutions to protecting the environment. But of course, these questions are very important. What energies are the most efficient? What are stored in a way that won't cause more harm to the environment than the good that they will do? All of this is a cause for some political humility. You know, this is the topic of this debate is our political rhetoric too extreme? And the answer, of course, is yes and no. It is too extremely stupid, but it's not extremely clear enough. It's not extremely humble enough. And that's something that we should all do when we're approaching any question, from climate change to immigration to any other issue. We should fundamentally approach it by acknowledging the complexity of that issue and not writing off half the country as being science deniers or deplorable and irredeemable. Because I don't think that's true of half of my countrymen, and I hope that the left doesn't feel that way about us.
I really think that the rhetoric in this country has to change, and I do want more intelligent debates. I want more debates like this. I mean, we disagree, we yelled at each other a little bit, but you know, it's a little entertainment, right? It's got to be. You got to keep you watching. I mean, people are leaving when you're starting to quote these studies, but it's the rhetoric in this country is not allowing us to really debate solutions, and we've got to get to a place where we find real solutions, because this world is changing fast. And we are starting to see other countries compete with us in ways they never have before. And unless we're willing to get serious about facing these challenges, both at home and abroad, and talk about them collectively as a nation without pointing at the other person and saying, no, you are evil, you are wrong, we're not going to get anything done. So I hope to God we can have more things like Politicon, where people from the left and the right, although mostly the right in this room, all come together and just kind of work it out, hug it out, talk it out. Move forward. It's the best we could do. Thank you for staying.
Thank you. I'm not going to give you a hug, but I'll give you a handshake.
Michael Knowles and Chris Hahn, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for coming out. Thanks.